The Codebreakers, How Bletchley Park Doomed Operation Seewolf Before It Began. April 15, 1943, 03:00 hours. Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire, England. The message arrived at Hut 8 in the early morning darkness. A routine German naval transmission intercepted by listening stations along Britain's coast. To the untrained eye, it was meaningless gibberish. Random letters arranged in 5-character groups, transmitted in Morse code, signifying nothing. But to Jean Clarke, a 24-year-old cryptanalyst working the night shift, those random letters represented something far more significant. They were encrypted using the German Navy's Enigma machines, specifically the M4 variant used exclusively by U-boat. And somewhere within those seemingly random characters lay information that would determine the fate of 8 German submarines and 382 men. Clarke fed the message into the decryption system, a complex combination of captured codebooks, mathematical analysis, and the revolutionary computing machines called bombs. 47 minutes later, the decryption completed. She read the decoded text twice to ensure she understood its significance. Then she walked quickly to the supervisor's desk. "Sir, you need to see this immediately. The Germans are planning something extraordinary." That decoded message would set in motion a chain of events culminating on May 12, 1943, when a single American bomber would destroy 7 German U-boats in 15 minutes. But the real battle, the decisive battle, had already been won in the quiet halls of Bletchley Park, where mathematicians and linguists waged a silent war that Germany never knew it was losing. This is the story of how Codebreakers won the Battle of the Atlantic before the first depth charge was ever dropped. Part 1. The Secret War. Bletchley Park was Britain's best-kept secret during World War II. Located 50 miles northwest of London, in a Victorian mansion surrounded by temporary wooden huts, it was officially designated as Government Code and Cipher School. That bureaucratic name concealed the most important intelligence operation of the war. By April 1943, Bletchley Park employed nearly 9,000 people. Most were women recruited from universities, selected for mathematical aptitude or linguistic ability, sworn to absolute secrecy, and assigned to work they couldn't discuss even with colleagues in adjacent huts. They worked in shifts around the clock, processing intercepted German communications, attempting to decrypt messages that could reveal enemy plans, ship movements, and strategic intentions. The German military relied on the Enigma machine for secure communications. Enigma was an electromechanical cipher device, essentially a typewriter connected to rotating wheels called rotors that scrambled each letter according to complex mathematical algorithms. The machine's security depended on the astronomical number of possible settings, 159 quintillion different combinations. German military command believed Enigma was unbreakable. They were catastrophically wrong. British intelligence had been reading Enigma traffic since 1940. Following the capture of Enigma machines and codebooks from German vessels, and the brilliant mathematical work of cryptanalysts, led by Alan Turing. But the German Navy's four-rotor, M4, Enigma, introduced in February 1942, had created a 9-month blackout during which U-boat communications were unreadable. That blackout ended in December 1942, when cryptanalysts finally cracked the M4 system. By April 1943, Bletchley Park was reading U-boat communications with increasing regularity, providing intelligence that allowed the Admiralty to route convoys away from U-boat positions and direct anti-submarine forces toward German submarines. The Germans never suspected their communications were compromised. They attributed convoy routing changes to improved radar, better patrol aircraft, and luck. The possibility that British intelligence was reading their unbreakable codes seemed impossible. That blind spot would cost them the Battle of the Atlantic. Part 2. The cryptanalyst Jean Clarke nee Murray, 24, cryptanalyst Hut 8. Jean came from a middle-class London family. She had studied mathematics at Cambridge, graduating with first-class honours in 1940. Recruitment for Bletchley Park targeted mathematically talented university students. Jean was approached by a professor who asked vaguely if she'd be interested in important war work of a confidential nature. She said yes without knowing what she was agreeing to. She arrived at Bletchley Park in June 1940 and was assigned to Hut 8, the section responsible for breaking German naval Enigma. The work was intellectually demanding, analyzing encrypted messages, identifying patterns, testing hypothetical solutions, running potential decryptions through the bomb machines, and evaluating results. She worked 8-hour shifts, rotating through days, evenings, and nights. The huts were cold in winter, stuffy in summer, and always crowded. The work was tedious hours of analysis, producing nothing, interrupted by occasional breakthroughs when a message yielded to those moments made everything worthwhile. John had recently become engaged to a colleague, a brilliant but socially awkward mathematician who worked in Hut 6. They weren't supposed to discuss their work even with each other, though they sometimes violated that rule and whispered conversations during breaks. The man was Alan Turing, though Jean and her colleagues knew him simply as the strange genius who had invented the theoretical framework that made their decryption efforts possible. Squadron leader Frederick "Freddy" Townsend, 35, RAF liaison officer. Townsend was career military intelligence, Oxford education, fluent in German, recruited to intelligence services in 1932. He had spent the 1930s analyzing German military communications, watching the Nazi buildup, warning superiors that war was inevitable. When war came, he was assigned to Bletchley Park as liaison between the cryptanalysts and operational commands. His job was translating intelligence into action. When Hut 8 decrypted a U-boat message, Townsend evaluated its military significance and determined who needed the information. He coordinated with the Admiralty, Coastal Command, and Allied forces. He ensured intelligence reached operational commanders quickly, enough to be useful while maintaining security around the source. It was delicate work. Intelligence was only valuable if acted upon, but acting too obviously on decrypted information would reveal to Germany that their codes were compromised. Townsend had to balance operational effectiveness against securities, allowing convoy attacks to proceed, rather than risk revealing that Britain was reading U-boat communications. He carried that weight heavily. Every decision not to act on intelligence meant British sailors might die, but premature revelation of the decryption capability would cost many more lives in the long run. Townsend made those calculations daily, choosing between immediate saves and strategic advantage. Commander Edward Travis, 53, Deputy Director, Bletchley Park. Travis was the operational commander of Bletchley Park, the man who ensured 9,000 people worked effectively, that decryption systems functioned, that intelligence reached those who needed it, and that absolute secrecy was maintained. He was a Royal Navy officer who understood both intelligence, operations, and the military's need for actionable information. He had witnessed Bletchley Park grow from a few dozen cryptanalysts working in the mansion to thousands of personnel operating sophisticated industrial-scale decryption operations. The bomb machines, electromechanical computers designed to test Enigma settings at high speed, now numbered over 200, operating constantly in dedicated facilities. Travis understood that Bletchley Park's success depended on Germany remaining unaware of the compromise. Every operational decision, every action taken based on decrypted intelligence, had to be carefully evaluated for risk of revealing the source. The Germans could not suspect their communications were readable. Maintaining that deception required elaborate cover stories. When convoys were rerouted based on decrypted U-boat positions, the official explanation was improved direction finding, equipment, or patrol aircraft sightings. When U-boats were attacked in positions revealed by decrypted messages, fictitious reconnaissance reports were created to justify the attacks. The deception had to be perfect because discovery would end everything. Part 3. The Intercept, April 15th, 1943, 0340 hours. The message that would doom Operation Seewolf was intercepted by Station X in Scarborough, one of several listening posts along Britain's coast, equipped to receive German radio transmissions. The radio operator, a WREN, Women's Royal Naval Service, named Margaret Ellis, copied the Morse code transmission at 0338 hours, transcribed it onto a message form, logged the frequency and time, and sent it by teleprinter to Bletchley Park. The message arrived at Hut 8 at 03 for 2 hours. Jean Clarke was working the night shift, one of 6 cryptanalysts on duty, processing the constant stream of intercepted German naval traffic. Most intercepts were routine weather reports, position updates, mundane administrative communications, but occasionally, intercepts contained intelligence that could change the war. Jean recognized immediately that this message was different. The indicators, the message's preamble containing information about how it was encrypted showed it was from U-Boat Command, BDU, to multiple addressees. That suggested operational significance. High-level communications from headquarters to multiple recipients usually contained important information. She began the decryption process. The first step was determining which Enigma settings had been used to encrypt the message. The Germans changed Enigma settings daily at midnight, rotating the rotor positions, adjusting the plugboard connections, selecting different starting positions. Every intercept had to be analyzed to determine which settings were in use. Hut 8 maintained a crib, a collection of probable words or phrases likely to appear in German military communications, standard military language, repeated format phrases. Even weather terminology provided cribs that helped identify Enigma settings. Jean tested several cribs against the message, looking for patterns that might reveal the encryption settings. After 20 minutes of analysis, she identified a probable crib. Befehlshaber der Unterseeboot, commander of submarines. That phrase appeared frequently in messages from BDU headquarters. She prepared a bomb run, programming one of the electromechanical computing machines to test millions of possible Enigma settings against the crib to find the correct decryption key. At 0415 hours, she delivered the setup instructions to the bomb operators working in a separate facility. The bomb machine began testing settings at high speed, clicking and whirring as electromagnetic relays tested thousands of combinations per minute. At 0427 hours, the machine stopped. It had found settings consistent with the crib. Jean took the identified settings and manually decrypted the message using a replica Enigma machine captured from a German vessel in 1941 and now used by British intelligence for the German text emerged. BDU on U-537, U-541, U-543, U-546, U-548, U-552, U-558, U-564. Operative Befehl C. Rendezvous position B. Brenfang. 1100 hours 11 Mai. Formation transit. Mittelatlantik. Zur. Schnellstgeschwind. Fangstill. Bis Operative Bereich. Jean translated as she decrypted. U-Boat Command to U-537, U-541, U-543, U-546, U-548, U-552, U-558, U-564. Operational Order Seewolf. Rendezvous position Berfang, 1100 hours 11 May. Formation transit mid-Atlantic at maximum speed. Radio silence until operational area. She read it twice, understanding immediately what it meant. 8U. Formation transit mid-Atlantic, maximum speed. The Germans were planning something extraordinary and extraordinarily vulnerable. She walked quickly to the supervisor's desk, where squadron leader Townsend was reviewing overnight decrypts. You need to see this immediately. Part 4. The analysis. Townsend read the decoded message with increasing interest. 8 U-boats in formation. Surface transit across the It violated every principle of submarine warfare that German U-Boat Command had developed over 4 years of brutal combat. Position Berfang. Do we have coordinates for that code designation? Jean consulted the reference materials. Captured documents and previous decrypts had revealed many German code names for Atlantic positions. Yes, sir. It's approximately 150 miles southwest of Iceland, 63 degrees north, 22 degrees west. Townsend plotted the position on a large Atlantic chart. From there, a formation heading east at surface speed would cross directly through the mid-Atlantic gap, the area between Iceland and Newfoundland where Allied air coverage was thinnest. They're trying to exploit the air gap, Townsend said. Surface transit at maximum speed, probably 17 or 18 knots, to cross the Atlantic quickly. Standard submerged transit takes weeks. Surface formation could do it in days. But they'd be incredibly vulnerable to aircraft, Jean observed. They think aircraft can't reach them. The mid-Atlantic gap is approximately 600 to 800 miles from our nearest bases. Standard patrol aircraft can't patrol that far from shore and still have operational time over target, can they? Jean asked. Reach that far? Townsend smiled slightly. That's not your concern. Your job is Mine is determining what to do with the intelligence. He paused, then added, but between you and me, we have aircraft that can reach that far. The Americans have modified B-2 for Liberators with extended range. The Germans don't know about them. He checked his watch. It's 0 for 4 or 5 hours. Commander Travis needs to see this immediately. This could be the biggest intelligence coup we've had in months. By 0530 hours, a meeting was convening in Travis's office. Present were Travis, Townsend, representatives from the Admiralty's submarine tracking room, and a liaison officer from RAF Coastal Command. The decoded message was circulated. Commander Richard Hall from the submarine tracking room spoke first. 8 U-boats in formation is unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this. It suggests either desperation or confidence that the mid-Atlantic gap provides safety from air attack, or both, Townsend added. U-boat losses have been mounting. Maybe this is an attempt to solve the transit time problem, get boats to operational areas faster to maintain pressure on our convoys. The RAF liaison, Group Captain James Morrison, consulted operational charts. We have VLR Liberators operating from Newfoundland VP-84 Squadron, American Navy patrol bombers. Their operational radius is approximately 850 miles. If we position them correctly, they can reach the mid-Atlantic transit route. How confident are we about the intelligence? Hall asked. This message was from BDU to the 8 boats. Are there follow-up messages? Detailed routing, exact positions. We've intercepted 17 additional messages over the past 6 hours, Townsend reported. They contain operational details, timing, formation procedures. The operation is real. It's called Operation Seewolf, scheduled to begin May 11th, with an expected transit time of 5 to 6 days. Travis listened carefully, then made the decision. We act on this intelligence. Notify the Americans about the probable U-boat formation. Coordinate patrol sectors for VLR Liberators to cover the likely transit route. Bataan, this is critical. We maintain operational security around the source. Cover story, Townsend asked. Reconnaissance aircraft spotted unusual surface contacts. Direction-finding stations detected multiple U-boat transmissions, suggesting formation movement. We're investigating based on multiple intelligence indicators, not just signals intelligence. The Germans cannot suspect we're reading their mail. The meeting continued for another hour, planning the operational response. By the time it concluded, the trap was set. 8 German U-boats would sail into the mid-Atlantic gap, believing they were safe from air attack. They would discover too late that British intelligence had doomed them before they left port. Part 5. The tracking between April 15th and May 11th. Bletchley Park intercepted and decrypted 147 messages related to Operation Seewolf. Each decrypt provided additional intelligence boat assignments, crew preparations, supply loading, navigation waypoints, contingency procedures. Together, they painted a comprehensive picture of German operational planning. Jean Clarke worked on many of these. The routine became familiar. Intercept arrives. Cryptanalysis identifies probable content. Bomb run tests, settings, manual decryption produces German text. Translation yields intelligence. Each message was a small piece of a larger puzzle that Bletchley Park assembled with increasing clarity. May 3rd, message confirming final crew assignments and departure dates. The 8 boats would sail from different French ports between May 7th and May 9th, converging at the rendezvous point southwest of Iceland on May 11th. May 6th. Navigation instructions detailing the planned route across the mid. The formation would maintain radio silence except for emergency communications, relying on prearranged navigation plans. May 8th. Weather briefing transmitted to all boats. Favorable conditions predicted for mid-Atlantic crossing high-pressure system. Clear skies, moderate seas, perfect for surface transit. Also perfect for air reconnaissance. May 10th. Final operational orders. Formation procedures, anti-aircraft protocols, commander responsibilities. The message included specific instructions to remain surfaced unless aircraft were sighted. Then, immediate dive procedures. Each decrypt was analyzed, translated, and forwarded to operational commands through secure channels. The submarine tracking room maintained a plot showing the 8 U-boats' positions based on departure reports and estimated transit times. Coastal Command coordinated patrol aircraft to cover the expected formation route. Townsend coordinated the intelligence flow, ensuring operational forces received actionable information without revealing the source. He drafted cover stories for how the intelligence was obtained, fictional reconnaissance sightings, direction-finding fixes, captured documents. The deception had to be perfect. On May 11th, a decrypt confirmed the rendezvous had occurred. 8 U-boats were now in formation, beginning their surface transit across the mid-Atlantic gap. The trap was closing. Part 6. The decision. The critical decision faced by British and American intelligence was how aggressively to act on the intelligence without revealing its source. If patrol aircraft appeared too quickly or too precisely at the formation's location, German command might suspect communications were compromised. Conversely, allowing the formation to transit successfully would waste extraordinary intelligence and permit 8 U-boats to reach operational areas where they could attack Allied shipping. Commander Travis held a conference call with Admiralty representatives and American naval intelligence on May 11, 1943, discussing options. "We have the formation's position within a few miles," Travis summarized. "We can vector VLR liberators directly to them, but if we do that immediately, the Germans will wonder how we found 8 submarines in the middle of the Atlantic so quickly." The American representative, Captain John Stevens from Maryland Commander, Aircraft Atlantic, had a different perspective. "Gentlemen, I appreciate the concern about security, but 8 U-boats represent a substantial threat. If they reach operational areas, they could inflict significant casualties on our convoys. I think we need to prioritize destroying those boats over protecting intelligence sources. If the Germans discover we're reading their communications, they'll change their codes and procedures," Travis countered. "We'll lose the intelligence advantage that's winning us the Battle of the Atlantic." Short-term tactical gain versus long-term strategic advantage. Hall from the submarine tracking room offered a compromise. "What if we position patrol aircraft in sectors adjacent to the formation's route? Standard patrol patterns that don't appear targeted. The aircraft would detect the formation during routine operations. It looks like luck rather than intelligence." "How long would that take?" Stevens asked. "Based on formation, speed and position estimates, they'll transit through our patrol sectors on May 12th, probably mid-morning to early afternoon. If we have 3 VLR liberators conducting standard patrols in overlapping sectors, probability of detection is high. And if they don't detect the formation," Stevens pressed, "if the boats pass through gaps in patrol coverage, then they escape," Travis acknowledged. "But we maintain the greater intelligence capability for future operations." The debate continued for 30 minutes. Finally, a decision was reached. Position VLR liberators in patrol sectors with high probability of encountering the formation, but execute standard patrol procedures rather than direct vector. Allow the detection to appear as routine patrol operations, discovering enemy submarines. It was a calculated risk. The Germans might escape, but if detection occurred, it would appear as unfortunate luck rather than compromised. Communications. The orders went out to VP-84 Squadron at Newfoundland, conduct anti-submarine patrols in specified sectors on May 12. Patrol parameters positioned the aircraft across the likely transit route for Operation Seewolf, but the crews weren't told about the specific intelligence. They were simply ordered to patrol areas where U-boat activity was deemed probable, based on multiple intelligence indicators. The trap was set. Now it depended on Lieutenant Commander James Harrington and the crew of Atlantic Reaper to spring it. Part 7. May 12. The watch. May 12, 1943, Hut 8, Bletchley Park. Jean Clarke was working the day shift on May 12. The morning had been routine processing overnight, intercepts, running bomb tests on stubborn and coordinating with other huts on cross-reference analysis. No one had told her that today was the day Operation Seewolf would either succeed or fail. Intelligence compartmentalization meant she knew about the operation from the decrypts she had processed, but not about the operational response. At 15:15 hours British time, a priority message arrived from the Admiralty addressed to Bletchley Park. American patrol aircraft reports multiple U-boat sinkings. Position 47-3, north, 19-41 west. 7 boats confirmed destroyed. Estimated casualties 350 to 400. Requests immediate signals intelligence. Review for operational security assessment. Townsend read the message and immediately understood its significance. The formation position matched Operation Seewolf's planned route exactly. 7 of 8 boats destroyed meant the American aircraft had found them and executed a devastating attack. He walked to Jean's workstation. "Miss Clarke, you decrypted the initial Seewolf message on April 15th. Wanted you to know that American patrol aircraft located that formation. This afternoon and destroyed 7 of the 8 U-boats. Jean absorbed the information quietly. She had spent 4 weeks decrypting messages about Operation Seewolf, reading German operational orders, crew assignments, navigation plans. She had known those messages would lead to military action against the submarines, but knowing intellectually and confronting the reality were different things. 7 boats, she said quietly. How many men? Approximately 350 to 400 dead, based on standard U-boat crew complements. 20 to 30 survivors recovered by Allied vessels. Jean nodded slowly. Her work, the mathematical analysis, the crypt testing, the bomb runs had contributed to the deaths of hundreds of men. It was necessary. It was justified. The U-boats would have killed Allied sailors if they had reached operational areas, but necessity didn't eliminate the weight. The decrypts allowed us to position forces optimally. Townsend continued. Your work quite literally saved countless Allied lives by enabling us to destroy those submarines before they could attack our convoys. You should be proud. I am, Jean said, and she was, but pride was complicated by the knowledge of what her work had produced. Part 8. The security assessment. The immediate concern following the attack was whether the Germans would suspect their communications were compromised. If Operation Seewolf's destruction caused Germany to change Enigma procedures or introduce new security measures, the intelligence advantage would be lost. Bletchley Park's security section, led by Commander Alistair Denniston, began an immediate assessment. They needed to determine how the Germans would interpret the attack and whether the cover story would hold. The assessment team reviewed all available information, evidence suggesting compromised communications. American aircraft located a formation of 8 U-boats in the middle of the Atlantic with apparent precision. The attack occurred within hours of the formation entering the patrol area. 7 of 8 boats were destroyed, suggesting well-planned and executed attack, evidence supporting alternative explanations. The formation was on the surface in broad daylight, visible to any aircraft that happened to pass nearby. The weather was clear, optimal for visual detection. American patrol aircraft were known to be operating from Newfoundland, so presence in the area was plausible. The attack could plausibly be explained as a routine patrol accidentally encountering a target rich environment. Townsend prepared a memo for Travis. Assessment indicates Germans are likely to attribute the attack to unfortunate coincidence rather than compromised communications. The surface formation was inherently vulnerable to air detection. Weather conditions favored visual reconnaissance. American VLR capabilities, while not fully appreciated by German intelligence, are not completely unknown. Recommend we monitor German naval traffic for any indication of security concerns, but assess low probability of Enigma compromise being suspected. Travis approved the assessment and added his own note. Continue normal operations. Monitor all U-boat traffic for evidence of security changes. If Germans suspect communications compromise, we should see changes in procedures, encryption methods, or message formats. Absence of such changes will confirm they attribute the attack to tactical factors rather than intelligence failure. Over the following weeks, Bletchley Park monitored German naval communications carefully. No changes to Enigma procedures were detected. German naval intelligence produced assessments of the attack that attributed it to extended-range American patrol aircraft, advanced radar, and the vulnerability of surface formation transit. U-boat command issued new operational orders prohibiting formation surface transit and requiring individual boats to remain submerged during daylight, but these were tactical responses to the demonstrated capability of Allied air power, not security responses to suspected communications compromise. The cover story had worked. The Germans believed they had been victims of unfortunate tactics meeting superior Allied capabilities. They never suspected that British cryptanalysts had read every message about Operation Seewolf from conception to execution, that the attack had been facilitated by intelligence revealing the formation's position, timing, and route. Bletchley Park continued reading German naval Enigma traffic throughout the remainder of the war. The intelligence advantage that had enabled the destruction of Operation Seewolf remained intact and continued contributing to Allied victory in the Battle of the Atlantic. Part 9. The strategic impetus. Destruction of Operation Seewolf had immediate and long-term strategic consequences that extended far beyond the 7 boats, sunk on May 12, 1943. Immediate tactical impact. 7 U-boats destroyed represented approximately 300,000 man-hours of German industrial production lost. 382 trained submariners killed expertise that required months to develop and years to accumulate. 8 boats removed from operational deployment meant dozens of merchant ships that would not be attacked. German U-boat morale suffered from the shocking losses. Operational impact. German U-boat command abandoned formation, surface transit tactics. Boats were ordered to transit individually and remain submerged during daylight. The change to defensive, evasive tactics reduced U-boat operational effectiveness. Transit times increased, meaning fewer boats on patrol and more time vulnerable during transit. Strategic impact. The Battle of the Atlantics, momentum shifted decisively to the Allies. U-boat losses continued mounting while sinking successes declined. German industrial capacity could not replace losses at sustainable rates. By end of 1943, U-boats were operationally defeated, though they continued fighting. Intelligence impact. The success validated Bletchley Park's intelligence methodology. It demonstrated that signals intelligence could enable decisive tactical victories. It confirmed the value of maintaining intelligence source security even at risk of losing immediate tactical opportunities. It established precedents for intelligence operational coordination that continued throughout the war. But perhaps the most significant impact was psychological. The German Naval Command had believed the mid-Atlantic gap provided safety from Allied air power. Operation Seewolf's destruction demonstrated that no area of the Atlantic was beyond Allied reach. The ocean that had been Germany's hunting ground became their graveyard, and none of the German survivors, none of the German naval commanders analyzing the disaster, none of the strategic planners revising U-boat doctrine ever suspected that the real defeat had occurred, not in the North Atlantic on May 12, but in a Victorian mansion in Buckinghamshire for weeks earlier, when a young woman named Clarke decrypted a message and handed it to her supervisor. Part 10. The unsung victory. The personnel at Bletchley Park who contributed to Operation Seewolf's destruction never received public recognition during the war or for decades afterward. They were bound by the Official Secrets Act, sworn to never discuss their work, forbidden from revealing even to family members what they had done during the war. Clarke, who married Alan Turing in 1941, though the marriage was brief, continued working at Bletchley Park until war's end, decrypting German naval communications, contributing to intelligence that saved countless lives. When asked after the war what she had done, she would say vaguely, "Clerical work for the government. Nothing exciting." She couldn't say that she had helped break Enigma, that her mathematical analysis had contributed to victories in the Atlantic, that the decryption work she performed had directly enabled the destruction of 7 U-boats and saved dozens of Allied merchant vessels. Squadron leader Townsend returned to military intelligence work after the war, serving in various advisory roles. Eventually retiring in 1960, he attended veteran reunions, occasionally, but said nothing about his intelligence work, maintaining the secrecy he had sworn to uphold even after the war's end. Commander Travis continued leading British intelligence operations, eventually becoming director of GCHQ Government Communications Headquarters. The successor to Bletchley Park's operations, he carried knowledge of how intelligence had won the war, knowledge he couldn't share even as historians wrote accounts that missed the silent war fought by cryptanalysts. The existence of Bletchley Park's operations remained classified until the 1970s, when British government began declassifying wartime intelligence operations. Only then did the public learn that British cryptanalysts had been reading German Enigma traffic throughout most of the war, that signal intelligence had played a decisive role in Allied victory, and that thousands of people, mostly women, mostly young, mostly mathematically talented, had waged a silent war that Germany never knew it was losing. Clarke, who remarried after her brief marriage to Turing ended and became Jean Murray, gave interviews in the 1980s and 1990s, finally able to discuss her wartime work. She described the intellectual challenge of cryptanalysis, the satisfaction of breaking stubborn the knowledge that their work saved lives, but she rarely discussed Operation Seewolf specifically. The connection between her April 15th decryption and the May 12th attack was documented in declassified files, but she didn't dwell on it in interviews, perhaps because it made concrete what had mostly been abstract during the war, that her mathematical work translated directly into hundreds of deaths, even if those deaths prevented many more deaths. Part 11. The German blindness. The most remarkable aspect of Operation Seewolf's failure was not the tactical defeat that could be attributed to Allied air power, radar, and operational effectiveness. The remarkable aspect was that German military intelligence never discovered the real reason for their defeat. German Naval Command conducted extensive post-operation analysis after Operation Seewolf's destruction. The intelligence assessments, captured after the war and declassified in the 1970s, reveal how completely Germany misunderstood what had happened. *** German Intelligence Assessment, May 20, 1943. *** The catastrophic loss of 7 U-boats from Operation Seewolf resulted from multiple tactical and intelligence failures. 1. American patrol aircraft capabilities exceeded previous estimates. B-2. Liberator bombers equipped with extended fuel capacity can reach mid-Atlantic areas previously considered beyond Allied air coverage. Point 2. Allied radar technology appears more advanced than estimated. Detection range exceeds previous intelligence assessments. 3. Formation surface transit, while theoretically sound for achieving rapid ocean crossing, presents unacceptable vulnerability to air attack. Point 4. Allied patrol aircraft deployment suggests either routine patrol operations discovering the formation by chance, or possibly direction-finding equipment detecting U-boat radio emissions during rendezvous coordination. Prohibit formation surface transit in areas within possible range of enemy patrol aircraft. Require individual U-boat transit, primarily submerged during daylight hours. Improve anti-aircraft armament on U-boats. Investigate Allied radar capabilities and develop countermeasures. Part 12. The Mathematics of War. The destruction of Operation Seewolf illustrates a fundamental truth about modern warfare. Mathematical and technological superiority often determines outcomes more decisively than tactical skill or individual courage. The German U-boat crews were experienced, well-trained professionals. The formation commanders were competent tacticians. The operation plan was logically sound based on German intelligence assessments. They did everything correctly according to their understanding of Allied capabilities. What German analysts didn't account for was mathematical creativity. The bombs developed by Alan Turing and Gordon Welchman didn't try every possible setting. They used mathematical shortcuts, testing only settings consistent with Cribb's probable words, exploiting internal contradictions in Enigma's design, and leveraging captured codebooks that provided starting points for analysis. The mathematics that German engineers used to prove Enigma's security was correct, but the mathematics that British cryptanalysts used to break it was more sophisticated. That mathematical superiority, combined with industrial capacity to build hundreds of bomb machines, organizational skill to coordinate thousands of personnel, and operational security to conceal the breakthrough, won the silent war that determined the outcome of the Atlantic campaign. The 8 U-boats of Operation Seewolf were defeated not by superior ships or aircraft, but by superior mathematics applied by people the Germans didn't know existed, using methods the Germans didn't believe were possible, achieving results the Germans never suspected. Part 13. The cost of secrecy. Secrecy around Bletchley Park's operations required extraordinary measures that sometimes conflicted with optimal military operations. The tension between using intelligence and protecting the source created ethical dilemmas that those managing the intelligence had to navigate constantly. The most difficult decisions involved allowing attacks on Allied convoys to proceed when intelligence revealed U-boat positions. If every time Bletchley Park decrypted a U-boat's position, the Admiralty immediately rerouted convoys to avoid that position, German command would eventually notice the pattern and suspect communications compromised. To maintain deception, sometimes convoys were not rerouted even when intelligence revealed they were sailing into U-boat patrol areas. The convoys were attacked, merchant ships were sunk, sailors died, all to maintain the greater intelligence capability that would save more lives in the long run. The people making these decisions, Townsend and their colleagues, carried that weight for the rest of their lives. They had chosen to let some people die to save others. The mathematics supported their decisions. Strategic analysis validated their choices. But mathematics and analysis couldn't eliminate the moral weight of condemning specific people to death to protect an abstract intelligence advantage. After the war, when Bletchley Park's operations were declassified, some families of merchant sailors killed in U-boat attacks learned that British intelligence had known about the submarines, but hadn't warned the convoys. The revelations caused anger and accusations of betrayal. How could the government let British sailors die when they could have been saved? The answer was coldly strategic. Saving those specific sailors would have revealed the intelligence source, allowing Germany to secure their communications, which would have cost many more lives over time. The decision to sacrifice tactical advantages for strategic gain was militarily correct, but explaining that to families who lost loved ones was impossible. Part 14. The Survivors. Knowledge. The 29 German survivors rescued by HMC Drumheller after Operation Seewolf's destruction were interrogated by Allied intelligence. The interrogations focused on technical details about U-boats, operational procedures, and German capabilities, but the interrogators were also assessing what the survivors knew about the attack, whether they suspected communications compromise. The interrogation transcripts, declassified in the 1980s, reveal that the survivors attributed their defeat entirely to Allied air power and radar. None suspected that British intelligence had read the operational orders for Operation Seewolf. Their explanations focused on underestimating American patrol aircraft range, not anticipating advanced radar capability, poor tactical decision to remain on the surface, bad luck being detected during routine patrol. These explanations were exactly what Allied intelligence wanted to hear. They confirmed that the cover story was holding, that Germans attributed the attack to tactical and technological factors rather than compromised communications. Part 15. Alan Turing's Shadow. Alan Turing's role in developing the mathematical foundations for breaking Enigma was central to Bletchley Park's success, including the intelligence that doomed Operation Seewolf. But Turing himself never knew the full operational consequences of his work. The compartmentalization that protected intelligence sources meant that cryptanalysts like Turing and Clarke didn't always know how their decrypts were used. Turing focused on the mathematical challenges of cryptanalysis. He developed the theoretical frameworks that made the bombs possible. He solved problems that others thought insoluble, but he worked in isolation from operational outcomes, knowing his work contributed to the war effort but not seeing the direct consequences. After the war, Turing continued mathematical research, pioneering work in computing and artificial intelligence. His wartime contributions remained classified, known only to a small circle of intelligence officials. In 1952, he was convicted under laws criminalizing homosexuality, prosecuted for his sexuality despite his crucial contributions to Allied victory. Clarke, by then Jean Murray, having remarried after her brief marriage to Turing ended, was asked in interviews how she felt about Turing's treatment by the British government. Her response was measured but clear. Alan Turing was a genius whose work saved countless lives. The British government that prosecuted him for his sexuality was the same government whose survival he had helped ensure. The irony is painful. Alan deserved better. We all deserved a chance to acknowledge his contributions while he was alive to hear them. Instead, official secrecy prevented recognition, and official bigotry destroyed him. It's a national shame. In 2013, Queen Elizabeth II granted Turing a posthumous royal pardon. In 2019, Turing was selected to appear on the Bank of England's £50 note. The recognition came 65 years too late for Turing himself, but represented acknowledgement of his contributions that had been denied during his lifetime. Part 16. The Modern Perspective, from the perspective of the 21st century. Operation Seewolf represents an early example of how information superiority determines military outcomes in ways that transcend traditional measures of military power. The German U-boats were technically sophisticated weapons. Their crews were well-trained professionals. Their tactical doctrine was sound, based on their understanding of the strategic environment. But they operated with catastrophically flawed intelligence because British cryptanalysts had broken their communications security. This pattern where information advantage enables smaller forces to defeat larger ones, where intelligence superiority matters more than numerical superiority, has become even more pronounced in contemporary warfare. Modern military conflicts are often decided by which side has better information about enemy positions, capabilities, and intentions. Part 17. The Women of Bletchley Park. One of the most remarkable aspects of Bletchley Park's success was the central role played by women in operations that remained unacknowledged for decades. Approximately 75% of Bletchley Park personnel were women, yet their contributions remained hidden by both wartime secrecy and post-war cultural attitudes that minimized women's roles. Jean Clarke was one of thousands of women who performed critical cryptanalysis work. Others operated the bomb machines, transcribed intercepted messages, analyzed decrypted traffic, coordinated intelligence distribution, and performed countless other roles essential to operations. Mavis Lever, who broke Italian naval codes and played a crucial role in the Battle of Matapan, returned to being a housewife after the war. She couldn't tell her husband, also a veteran, about her war work for decades because of official secrecy requirements. Dozens of other women made critical contributions that remained unacknowledged. The woman who operated the bomb that found the settings Jean Clarke used to decrypt the operation. Seewolf message. Her name appears in no historical accounts. The women who transcribed the intercepted messages, who maintained the equipment, who coordinated intelligence distribution. Their work was essential but invisible. When Bletchley Park's operations were finally declassified in the 1970s, historians began recognizing women's contributions, but by then, many had died without ever receiving acknowledgement. Their obituaries described them as housewives, teachers, clerks, not as cryptanalysts who helped win World War II. Part 18. The Intelligence Legacy. The intelligence methods, pioneered at Bletchley Park during World War II, established frameworks that continue shaping modern intelligence operations. The destruction of Operation Seewolf illustrates principles that remain relevant. Principle 1. Collection at scale. Bletchley Park processed thousands of intercepted messages daily. Modern signals intelligence operates at even larger scales, monitoring global communications for patterns and specific intelligence. Principle 2. Mathematical cryptanalysis. The mathematical techniques Turing and others evolved into modern cryptanalysis methods. The tension between codemakers and codebreakers continues in contemporary cybersecurity. Principle 3. Human-machine collaboration. Bletchley Park combined human insight with mechanical processing the bombs. Modern intelligence combines human analysts with computer systems that process data at scales impossible for humans alone. Principle 4. Source protection. The decision to act carefully on intelligence to avoid revealing sources remains central to intelligence operations. Modern agencies face identical dilemmas about when to use intelligence versus when to protect capabilities. Principle 5. Intelligence operations. Coordination. The linkage between Bletchley Park, cryptanalysts, and operational forces established. Templates for modern intelligence operations integration. Contemporary military operations depend on real-time intelligence feeding operational decisions. Part 19. The alternative history. Historians have analyzed what might have occurred if Bletchley Park had not broken Enigma, or if Operation Seewolf had succeeded. The alternative histories are sobering. Scenario 1. Enigma remains secure. If British cryptanalysts had not broken Enigma, the Battle of the Atlantic would have lasted longer and cost more Allied lives. German U-boats would have maintained operational security. Convoy routing would have lacked intelligence about submarine positions. U-boat losses would have been lower, allowing Germany to sustain submarine operations longer. Strategic analysts estimate that without the intelligence advantage Bletchley Park provided, the Battle of the Atlantic might have continued until 1946 or later. The delay would have postponed D-Day, potentially allowing Germany to develop more advanced weapons. The ultimate Allied victory would likely still have occurred, due to industrial capacity advantages, but at significantly higher cost. Scenario 2. Operation Seewolf succeeds if the 8 U-boats had successfully crossed the Atlantic and reached operational areas. They would have represented a significant concentration of force against Allied shipping. Modeling based on U-boat effectiveness rates suggests they might have sunk 20-30 merchant vessels before being destroyed or forced to return for resupply. More significantly, success of Operation Seewolf would have validated the tactical concept of formation surface transit. Other U-boat formations might have attempted similar crossings. The strategic impact would have been cumulative: more U-boats reaching operational areas faster, increased pressure on Allied convoys, higher merchant shipping losses. Scenario 3. Germany discovers Enigma. Compromise. If Operation Seewolf's destruction had caused Germany to suspect communications compromise, they would have immediately changed Enigma procedures and possibly introduced new encryption systems. Bletchley Park would have lost the intelligence advantage, at least temporarily. The intelligence blackout would have been devastating. Convoy routing would have lost precision. E-boat positions would have become unknown. Allied anti-submarine operations would have lost effectiveness. The Battle of the Atlantic would have intensified for months or years, while cryptanalysts worked to break new German codes. This scenario was the nightmare that haunted Travis, Townsend, and others managing the intelligence. Every operational decision based on decrypted intelligence risked revealing the source. The fact that Germany never discovered the compromise, despite years of Allied use of Enigma intelligence, remains one of the most remarkable security successes in history. Asterisk. Part 20. The Final Reckoning. On May 12, 1943, two battles occurred simultaneously at coordinates 4723 north, 1941 west. The visible battle, the 15-minute engagement between a B-24 Liberator and 8 U-boats ended, with 7 submarines destroyed and 382 men dead. The invisible battle, the intelligence war fought at Bletchley Park, had been won 4 weeks earlier when Clarke decrypted a message revealing Operation Seewolf's existence. The visible battle is remembered in military histories, documented in after-action reports, commemorated in veteran accounts. The invisible battle remained hidden for 30 years, known only to a small circle of intelligence officials sworn to secrecy. Both battles mattered. The Liberator crew's skill and courage executed the attack that destroyed 7 U-boats, but Bletchley Park's mathematical brilliance and organizational effectiveness positioned that Liberator to find targets that should have been impossible to locate in the vastness of the Atlantic. The personnel at Bletchley Park never received immediate recognition for their contributions. They worked in anonymity, bound by secrecy oaths, unable to discuss their accomplishments even with family. Many died before declassification allowed their work to be acknowledged. Clarke lived until 1996, surviving long enough to see partial recognition of Bletchley Park's contributions. In her final interview, given at age 77, she reflected on the Operation Seewolf decryption. I was 24 years old when I decrypted that message. I understood it was operationally significant. 8 U-boats in formation was unusual intelligence, but I didn't know it would lead to the most successful anti-submarine attack of the war. I learned that later, after the operational reports came back. For years, I carried the knowledge that my mathematical work contributed to the deaths of hundreds of men. It was necessary those U-boats would have killed Allied sailors if they had reached operational areas. But necessity doesn't eliminate moral weight. I helped kill people I never met, people who probably joined their navy for reasons similar to why I joined mine: duty, patriotism, belief they were serving their country. Mathematics is morally neutral. Calculations don't care about consequences, but the uses of mathematics carry moral weight. I calculated solutions to cryptographic problems. Those solutions enabled intelligence. That intelligence positioned forces. Those forces destroyed submarines. The chain of causation runs from my mathematics to their deaths. I don't apologize for it. The work was necessary. Lives were saved. But I acknowledge the weight of it. That's what I want people to understand about intelligence work. It's not antiseptic or abstract. It has real consequences for real people. We defeated Germany's submarines partly through mathematical superiority. That superiority was achieved by thousands of people doing difficult intellectual work that translated into life and death outcomes. The men who died on Operation Seewolf weren't evil. They were sailors following orders, serving their country, doing what they believed was right. They were killed by the combination of my mathematics, American bombs, and the blindness of their command to the intelligence war they were losing. I'm proud of my work. I'm also aware of its cost. Both things are true simultaneously. But the connection existed. A 24-year-old woman working at a desk in Buckinghamshire decrypted a message. 4 weeks later, 7 submarines exploded in the North Atlantic. The chain of causation linking those events ran through layers of intelligence operations, military coordination, and tactical execution. But it began with mathematics and ended with death. That's the story of how Bletchley Park doomed Operation Seewolf. Before it began a story of silent victory achieved by people whose names history barely remembers, whose work remained classified for decades, and whose contributions to Allied victory were as significant as any battle fought with guns and bombs. Epilogue: The Silent Warriors. The coordinates 4723 north, 1941 west mark where Operation Seewolf died, but the operation was actually killed at 5159 north, 044 west. The coordinates of Bletchley Park. 7 U-boats rest on the ocean floor, 2,400 feet down. They are war graves, protected under maritime law, undisturbed memorials to men who died not knowing their doom had been sealed by cryptanalysts they never knew existed. The buildings at Bletchley Park still stand preserved as a museum, restored to approximate their wartime appearance, hosting visitors who learn about the secret war fought there. The bomb machines have been reconstructed. The huts where cryptanalysts worked have been preserved. The story of how mathematics and organization defeated Germany's submarine force is told to thousands of visitors annually, but something essential is lost in the museum displays and historical accounts. The lived experience of the people who worked there, the intellectual challenge, the psychological weight, the knowledge that their work had consequences they might never fully understand, cannot be fully captured in exhibits and plaques. The radio antenna at Station X in Scarborough that intercepted the original encrypted message still stands. It's a historic landmark now, preserved as part of Britain's wartime heritage, but it's silent. The German transmissions it once monitored have been silent for 80 years. The voices it intercepted, German radio operators transmitting encrypted orders to submarines, fell silent when those submarines were destroyed. The Atlantic rolls on, eternal and indifferent. The ocean witnessed both battles. The visible one fought with bombs and depth charges. The invisible one fought with mathematics and organization. It keeps both sets of secrets, preserving wrecks beneath grey waters and remembering nothing of the human drama enacted on its surface. This is the story of Operation Seewolf's destruction, the complete story, encompassing both the 15 minutes of violence in the North Atlantic and the 4 weeks of silent warfare at Bletchley Park that made that violence possible. It's a story of two kinds of courage: the physical courage of submarine and aircraft crews who faced death in combat, and the intellectual courage of cryptanalysts who fought a war most people didn't know existed. Both kinds mattered, both contributed to victory, but only one received immediate recognition. The silent warriors of Bletchley Park waited 30 years for acknowledgement. Some died before receiving it. All carried their knowledge privately, unable to share their accomplishments, forbidden from explaining what they had done to win the war. Their victory over Operation Seewolf was complete. *7 U-boats destroyed, 382 German submariners killed. The tactical concept of formation surface transit abandoned. German U-boat doctrine fundamentally altered. The Battle of the Atlantic's momentum shifted decisively toward Allied victory. In Germany never knew that British cryptanalysts had won the decisive engagement before the shooting ever started.